Good evening, and welcome to the Council Advisory Committee meeting of the 14th of February, 2022. Happy Valentine's Day. This meeting is being conducted with COVID-19 protocols. The meeting is being conducted electronically using Zoom and is being live streamed on Facebook Live. The most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councillors received and reviewed their meeting packages? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter before this council which has not been publicly circulated? At the Council Advisory Committee, CAC, we will vote as a committee to either send business forward to the council meeting for ratification, return to staff for further information or review, or defeat the recommendation. I will remind members of council that we should continue to be mindful of our decision-making wheel to make balanced and respectful decisions while adhering to our code of conduct. This council, through policy, has adopted Robert's rules as our rules of order, our parliamentary procedure, and as chair of the meeting, it is my responsibility to use those orders to ensure we get the business of the town done. We will be voting by poll. The chair will call your name and ask how say you. This method permits us to verbally record your vote. Are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of before this meeting commences? CEO Trope, could you please take the roll call?
Thank you, Mayor Snow. And based upon the names and the faces I see here on the screen, all of council is present and accounted for. So you have quorum for this evening's meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, CAO. We have been provided with a proposed agenda, and I ask for a motion to accept the agenda as circulated. Councillor York for the motion, and Councillor Gerard for the second.
Excuse me, Mayor Snow.
I see your hand. I'm about to address you, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Zabian, you have something?
So this is when I would want to add items to the agenda, right? You've changed the format a little bit.
Are you asking to add something to?
Yeah, I want to add 2 items to the agenda, but I wasn't sure if you were going to ask the question or you've gone a new route now.
Councillor Zabian, do you have a request to add something to
the agenda?
agenda?
I have 2 items. The first one, I wanted to discuss our meetings, why we're having them virtually now. The restrictions have been eased a little bit and the room capacity now is at 50%. And I feel that I'd like to make a motion to have a discussion on that. I think that we're keeping the citizens out from engaging, and I don't think that's productive for us or for the town.
Thank you for sharing that, Councillor Zabian. The reason that this meeting is being held on Zoom is that on Wednesday, when everything was circulated, we were still unsure of what changes would be made. From this point forward, based on what we have from our provincial government, we will be going to in council chamber meetings. So that should clear up that item. And you have a second item?
I do. I wasn't sure just because nobody replied to my email the other day when I asked. The second issue is I'd like to make a motion, Mayor Snow, to discuss your ability to chair these meetings fairly and impartially.
Thank you.
One example I'd like to mention is that I brought up an issue a month ago at CAC and you wouldn't entertain it. And tonight I see it's on the agenda brought forward by Deputy Mayor Savage. So perhaps if I change my last name to Gerard Savage Huntley or yours.
Councillor Zabian, I'm going to say that you are out of order at this motion.
If my skin
you
was
are
a little
making
lighter
disparaging
skin,
comments towards your fellow members of council.
Lighter skin,
mute him.
Can I talk, please?
No.
I'd like to talk though. I was
No.
elected to talk. You've muted me many times. I want to talk.
You're out of order.
I want to know why. You know what, Mayor Snow, you're out of order. You've been out of order for a long time, and I think someone should finally address it. These meetings are horrible. The way that you talk to some of us, the way that you've talked to me and addressed other people in this room is despicable. So please, with all due respect.
Councillor, you are out of order.
You've been out of order many times, Mayor Snow, with all due respect.
Councillor Zabian, you are out of order.
So what I'd like to ask
Councillor Zabian, I'm going to ask you to refrain from speaking. You are out of order. And if you speak again, you will be removed from this meeting. If you wish to discuss my tenure as chair, then I would suggest that you put it in an RFD, which is part of our policy. We have a motion and a seconder on our agenda as circulated. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. The minutes of the January 10th, 2022 CAC meeting have been distributed for approval. If there are no changes, the minutes are approved as distributed. If there are changes, the recording secretary will annotate the minutes in red, and the annotated minutes will be added to the electronic meeting file as approved. Are there any changes? Councillor Zabian?
Yeah, I do have a change. On the approval of the agenda in part 2, it says request to add discussion on the conduct of council meetings. I would just like that to reflect that I was the councillor who requested that and was dismissed, I guess, but I see it's on the agenda tonight, brought forward by another councillor. So I just want it noted that it was me that brought that forward a month ago, and I was told it wouldn't be entertained. Thank you.
Thank you. Recording secretary, you will annotate as requested. Thank you. Presentations. This evening we have 2 presentations. Our presenters have 10 minutes for the presentations, followed by questions from council. And I want to thank you in advance for your presentations. And our first one is with regards to our regional recreation facility update, and that's by Sierra Consulting. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. It's nice to be with you to give you an update. So we have a presentation. I understand we're on as a delegation, so that keeps it brief, and that's fine. So I have a presentation. So do you have that, or do you want me to share it?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll share mine. That's the
Okay.
quickest way.
You have access?
Everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, let me just get it on presentation mode. There we go. So I'll be as brief as I can be. There's a lot of work that has been done, and just on behalf of ourselves, Sierra Planning, I'm the project lead for what is, nominally speaking, a 2-phase process. The second phase is to go away and design the building, and then everything's great. But obviously, to get to that point, we have work to be done to generate the rationale and get the process of buy-in underway. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of discussion in the spring of this year when we come back with a plan. But the plan, which is on behalf of ourselves, Perkins and Will, CBCL, but also a working committee of certain members of council at both the county, Wolfville and Kentville, of course, and then certain members of staff as well have been providing value. So the process is working well. I'll just remind everyone where we started. We, as a company, were involved with Acadia University a few years ago, looking at the whole issue of the athletics complex and the fact that it does operate as the, the sort of largest multi-use rec facility in the area, and we made a very clear recommendation back then. So this is 2019, that because of the longevity of that pool and the complications of keeping it going, it's good that everyone should start to think and work on the development of an alternative that would be put in place sometime during the 2020s. And so that's what we have focused on: location, form, and the viability of a regional pool. So it's important that we remind ourselves that that's, excuse me, that's where we came from on this, and our work is now working with a committee. We were prior to, or just after we had done that work for Acadia, there was another piece of work which you as a municipality signed on to and had an important role, and very important role, if I recall, and that was for a sort of a regional assessment of needs. As a result of that, if you look at there on the screen under the community survey, so that's the views of the public at large. What's the most important thing? Obviously, there are a lot of things that are important, pathways and trails, for example, single purpose facilities, but also multi-purpose facilities, the most important piece. So we've taken as our launch point, A, our own position on this, B, the terms of reference, and C, the existing work that's been done on regional needs to be able to move forward on a plan for what would a multi-purpose facility entail. And these buildings are not cheap, so it's very important that we get agreement around the table as to what the core of these facilities are. So it's a valid question to ask what constitutes a multi-use recreation center, because wherever you go, you may get a different view on that. If you drive in through Truro, you get a view of that nice facility in Truro. If you're in Ontario, you have a different view. And if you're in a rural context, you'll have yet a different view again. So what I can indicate to everyone is the way that we're looking at this from the point of view of justifying a program that we can go back to the public with is to identify what are the core uses. We're fairly assured that an indoor aquatic center is the core of it, but is there something else that should be a core? And then on the sort of what I call the ancillary or the plus side, there are other things that may make very good use to be in the building, that may make sense. And so we need to be quite expansive in how we think, even if at the end of the day, we're not as ambitious perhaps because of financial constraints or whatever the particular reasons might be. But now is the time for us to be quite idealistic in terms of making sure that we're thinking openly, still doing our research and making sure it's justifiable, but not limiting ourselves in how we consider the options, because this will be a 50-year building. So to give you some examples, and you can find them from all over the country, this is just one in close to where I am speaking from, Newcastle in Durham region, east of Toronto. It's an ambitious plan for aquatics, a gym, and a future arena. I see a twin pad there shown in orange. That will come later. The important thing here is getting the core of the building organized. And this is another example where it's an aquatics, a library, and a future gym. So the gym gets pushed out to the future. It should all be based on needs that are present and opportunities. And so it's about that, but it's also about recognizing some synergies and efficiencies. I'll give you an example. An obvious one is if you are going to build an indoor pool, for example, rarely these days do you build an indoor pool by itself. There are other opportunities to put other things next to it within the building. It saves on staff resources, it saves on energy, it creates leveraged opportunities for having a better building that serves more people with a greater range of things. So that's really the essence of it. So just briefly turning to things like growth and change, the Kings County population projections as a whole, as I'm sure you've seen previously as well, there is modest growth. We know there's a lot of speculation with the census reporting, but it will report on the 4 years or 3.5 years prior to the pandemic. The evidence from the pandemic is that some people are voting with their feet in terms of leaving the bigger cities, and that's fine. The point is that even with a growth, there is nothing that we can see that would demonstrate that it is growth related alone that requires you to build new facilities. The other angle on this is that there's a need to replace some older infrastructure and serve needs in that way, and to bring them up to modern, mid 21st century standards. So in terms of what those core needs are, the work is ongoing. We're working with committee, and there'll be a committee meeting penciled in very shortly to discuss these items in more detail. But in terms of the indoor pools and the demand, we did a lot of work in this regard, very detailed actually, so that we are fairly assured that when you look at how the current facilities are used, and so that's the Acadia pool, that's the Kentville open air pool, which is a great summer use facility. When you look at the Greenwood military complex pool that's open to the public, and when you look at Waterville as another institutional pool, not not a typical municipal pool, much smaller than that. When you look at that all together, it's fairly clear to us that there is unmet demand. People would like to use the facilities, would like to have more aquatic services, but because of the nature of the supply, they may not. And to the extent those pools are used, what we're also seeing is that they are fairly heavily used as well. And so it's not the case that Acadia, for example, doesn't have good community access to the pool. If you look at the numbers, there is a considerable amount of community use, but is not serving the population and the various constituents of the population as well as it might if it were a more modern pool as well. Now, there are also challenges to Acadia in terms of its condition as well. So moving forward, the kinds of things that we want to make sure are in place is it's not just a swimming pool, far from it. It really is an aquatic center that itself is multi-use. So you're dealing with the opportunities for seniors, as you can see there, for therapy and aquafit classes and things of that nature, recreation for families and anyone. Also learning to swim, the programmatic element is important, as is the ability to train some of our best and brightest who would be great competition swimmers. And that's going to be important for the university and college circuit as well. So there are a number of different boxes that get ticked with these kinds of facilities. So I'm not going to go into this one in too much detail, but we spoke at length with a number of the users of the pools. And one of the questions that will be is how many tanks do you put in this complex? So the natatorium is the big volume space within which there will be, is it 1 tank, 2 tanks, or 3 tanks? It will be certainly more than 1 tank, likely 2 or 3 tanks, catering to the different needs. The most important finding, though, that I want to share with everyone is that a gymnasium, a municipal scale, large double gymnasium is a definitive need that is identified through our work. And in addition to that, there are some additional opportunity type uses, and that pertains to ice and the opportunity to consider the future of ice needs. So whether that be adding to the supply now, knowing that some of the older supply, including Kentville's arena, is an older form of development. So if we're looking at a building that has a long lifespan, we're looking to have a plan that is either modular in scale, meaning you can build an ice rink later, or you can build it now, but the site will enable that to happen. Principles of location then. Again, a lot of work has been done, and what we've done here, just showing you very quickly on screen, if you were to remove the Acadia pool from the mix, so the recognition that perhaps that pool has a certain life expectancy to it, how much of the population is served within a reasonable drive time, 30 minutes of a pool? And the area in purple is the area that is served if you were to use the 14 wing pool in Greenwood. So you can see that Kentville is just beyond that, as is obviously areas to the east as well. And Kentville, New Minas, Wolfville, areas to the east, generally account for around 60% of the population. So if that pool does go from Acadia, then you can see there is a prima facie need for a replacement of facilities. Regardless of those kinds of metrics, as I mentioned, the location has to be very strategic because you're planning for the future, not planning for the present. So you have to think about where the population will be, and where the land use framework will be, where the infrastructure will be, where the bus routes will be, maybe 10 years from now. So there are a number of things to consider, but one of which at the bottom there, I'd like everyone to just sort of recognize is that we're not planning for a facility in 2022. We're planning for a facility in terms of our mindset for something in the mid 2030s. And so this is how it needs to blend with your land use policies and practices that are emerging over the course of that period as well. And lastly, I just want to give everyone just a little bit of the headwinds of cost. You may have heard that costs for construction are escalating, and they certainly are. And where they go, we will no doubt discover together. But we do have cost consultants on our team, and they will be tasked with giving an accurate breakdown of costs for whatever the program elements that we have. And I think what we'll try and do is make sure that we break it into pieces so that we can see that, what are the costs for the various elements. To give you an example here, this is from the town of Riverview, which I'm sure everyone is aware of, just the other side of the Petty Kodiak in Moncton. Not a small facility, 70,000 square feet is quite large in terms of gross floor area, and results in about $40 million. That was in 2020. So if they're going to tender anytime soon, it would be higher, I would imagine. But what they're getting for that is pool, lane pool, double gym, walking track, multi-purpose room. That gives you a sense of scale. The last one I'll give you very quickly is on Prince Edward Island, the Simmons Sports Center, which is just off the main thoroughfares in downtown, replacing an existing an existing rink, but adding more to it, including a multi-purpose room, other space that can be used, office space and so forth, as well as an outdoor pool replacement. They're coming in around 28 million. That probably is a little high. We spoke to the architects who we're working with elsewhere, and we'll see where it goes. But that's kind of scale. So anything that we do here in terms of cost, is going to be sort of the entry point is this kind of price, I think. So that is it. The process, I'll just tell you where we are. So we have identified program development. There's been a lot of work done on that because of the need to get to this point. Concepts are being developed as we speak. There'll be really two different options, a core option, and then ones which are a little bit more ambitious. In terms of the sites, we are, as a consulting group, we think it is helpful if we develop preferred sites. Whether or not those get taken on as a result of discussion by you as individual councils, that we'll wait and see. But I think our job is to give you some logic to the sites and locations, to give some structure to this entire project. All of that is going to be costed as we go forward. There, of course, will be a business plan. And I say business plan in the sense of creating some estimates of what the deficits will be for this kind of facility, and then a consideration of some of the benefits. Not using the word cost so much as value in that regard. And then at the end of the process, we do focus on some of the next steps that will happen if councils wish to go forward. So this is a very quick overview, and I think what you will see is once we arrive at a draft plan, there may be some further public consultation because we have something I think helpful for people to consider, as opposed to just an abstract question about do you or do you not think a multi-use facility is good. And then beyond that, then our commitment is to come back to individual councils and have hopefully a full discussion, then committee of the whole, something like that, where we can start to discuss some of the opportunities and the challenges. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll stop sharing just to put everyone back on screen and hand it back to you, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Excellent presentation. I know we gave you a very short time frame. I guess our expectation is next time you come back, we'll start the meeting early so that we can truly have that fulsome discussion. So I'll open it up to members of council now for questions. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It looks very, very good, and hopefully everything will run smoothly here. I do have some experience with gymnasium facilities for sure, having taught in one for 35 years. I'm just wondering, as you get closer to the build times and things like that, like who decides the specifics? So, for example, what lines will go on the court,
Yeah.
The color of the walls, Because all of these, although it sounds funny, those are very important.
Yeah.
For example, if the walls are too white and you're trying to play badminton, you have a problem.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, as we get closer, who decides all of that?
Yeah.
Those very specific things.
Yes, thank you for the question, and through you, Madam Mayor. Our job in phase one is pretty nebulous in that we're trying to sort of narrow down scope down the questions from the very largest. I mean, do we want this or do we not, through to a location and things that are going to go in the building. And at that point, we sort of stop. We hand it over to you as councils to start to discuss commitments to go forward to what we're calling a phase two. And then phase two would be a fairly robust, well, it would be a full design process where you would re-engage with user groups and members of council and the public and really start to go through all of those details. And that's how it's done. And it's done step by step as the design progresses. And it's not a cheap exercise. Design development of a big building like this is much bigger than what we're currently doing here. It's longer, takes about a year. But the consultation is, to your point, I think pretty critical. It's not done in an ivory tower. It has to be fairly full and extensive.
Yep. I'm just thinking that there has to be people involved that know how to do that sort of thing. So
yeah, and through you again, Madam Mayor, they're on our team. You see me a lot in phase one. If this goes to phase two, I'll kind of hand the keys to our architectural partner, and he will, and his firm will start to run that process, and then I'll be sort of in the mix to assist on the business planning and all those and location stuff. So we have a fairly we have a great team, and it's certainly designed so that if this does go to an implementation phase, you have the team ready to go.
thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Hi, John. Thanks for your presentation. Just a question around, obviously you've been involved in the research of these types of facilities in the past,
Yeah.
and gone into the planning stages. In terms of the ones that you've been involved with and that have come to fruition, what are some of the major things that you would, point out to us to maybe for consideration as we move forward collectively, councils and municipalities, and namely around sort of the operating costs and the sustainability of entities like this?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and again through you, Your Worship. I think it really depends on if this were a project that was being sponsored by one municipality, so it's a municipal responsibility. I think it's a different conversation around some of those risks of operations, and certainly on the operating cost, but also the capital side. And then if you think forward, the allocation, you want residents to be of each municipality to have access, and then you can go even further. There are existing recreation departments that exist in these in your municipalities and the others. So how do you bring those together? So it gets a lot more complicated in a partnership forum. But I think if you start answering those questions right up front, right, and address the principle: do we or do we not accept the need? And then how you approach the whole issue of the operational governance structure, the model, and the issue of deficits and reporting on deficits. So in year 12, when there's when the deficit comes in, you've got a process whereby everyone is held to account as to why the deficit is the way it is. Those things have to follow, and to the credit to you and colleagues that wrote the RFP for us, it was very clear that some of the answer is in phase one, but it's going to continue into phase two. So if this project is a go in terms of design and development, then those matters have to be addressed as well as an active strategy through the design phase. So I don't think there'll be a lack of discussion about it. I just don't have any precise answers for you right at the minute as to the outcome.
very helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Sabian.
Hi, John. Thanks for that presentation. That was great. I know a lot of people watching are excited to have heard that tonight. Just wondering, and you may have said it, when or how far off, I guess, in the whole thing, would someone come back and say, well, here are some locations that we're looking at and where it might, wind up, I guess, in which unit or which town or.
Yeah. So we are, as we said, we had this similar presentation back in mid-January. Couldn't get down because of the snowstorm, but online to both the county and to Wolfville. And, we've pretty much concluded that we're not going to satisfy everyone in terms of location, but we know that this has to be probably in the New Minas, Kentville area, right, in order to meet the needs. And we do have a series of sites, and our job is to give you our view. We're professional urban planners, so we're as capable as anyone to give you our opinion on it. We'll probably give you a couple of sites because, and then reasons why we discounted some others, but lay them all out there. Because the one thing I can tell you from my experience is when we present sites to you the next time, there's a process of distillation. You have to sort of live with these sites and think about them before you can make a decision. You don't just read a report and say that makes sense. I think there has to be some consultation around it. But I think our job is to give you our best guess as to what we think is the right site or sites. And then, you can take it from there. That's the best process.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions for this presenter? There being no further questions, John, I've got one for you.
Yeah.
Over 60% of our greenhouse gas in Kings County comes from buildings. So have you or has your team worked on a green solution or a building that was more green? Is there a way that we can create, I'm going to say, an engineering miracle that from an operating costs, we're reusing our water and our heat and, everything is just amazingly green. Is it possible?
Yes. Thank you for the question. I think what our commitment is to make sure we do what we can based on best practices and knowledge of our engineering team to be able to answer those questions. So we have, you may have seen on the presentation, we are also partnered with CBCL, which is a great firm out of Halifax for engineering. And so whilst we're dealing with civil engineering from them at this point as it relates to site and infrastructure, once this project moves to something beyond the feasibility, they're written in to be able to approach those questions of net zero. Again, that was identified in the terms of reference, and I think we'll continue to work it through. Obviously, if you put an ice arena and a pool together, that's a pretty enticing start to that process, but it doesn't have to be those. I mean, as long as anything, and one thing, if you just allow me, one thing we heard particularly strongly is a desire for people to make sure this isn't, a big building up on the hill somewhere, only accessible by the, biggest cars. And I think we'll struggle a little bit to find something that serves everyone's purpose, but the idea of trying to link this to active transportation as much as possible and other opportunities is something that we're continuing to look at. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Good thing.
Well, thank you very much, John. And I'll tell you that we look forward to your next presentation and we'll give you a lot more time.
Okay, well, I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good evening.
Moving on to our next presentation, we are fortunate enough this evening to have the Valley Regional Enterprise Network. Jennifer Tufts is here. And Jennifer, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And we'll put this in presentation mode. Can everyone see that okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, good evening, Mayor Snow, Council, and CAO Troke. Thank you so much for having me here this evening. I'm very excited to share with you a high-level overview of our priorities, some of our programs and services, and provide you with some activity updates. Some of you may have seen some of this information on the next 3 slides before, but I wanted to begin by providing an overview of what regional enterprise networks are and do my best to set the context. So all the regional enterprise networks, or RENs, in the province share a very similar role. We connect, we retain, and we expand. Essentially, we are in existence to support local businesses and economic development outside of HRM. We do this by, connecting local businesses, universities, First Nations, and communities, supporting new business, industry, and investments, attracting and retaining skilled newcomers, and delivering leadership in regional economic development. There are 7 regional enterprise networks throughout the province that act as a network of networks. We're linked not only to the ecosystem of supports within our regions, but we're also linked through all of the REN network and even beyond. We act as navigators and connectors within our regions with varying levels of engagement dependent on the project and service provided. RENs were created to deliver leadership in regional economic development. We work on economic development outside of HRM, which is an enormous mandate, but one that is key to the success of the province as a whole. We like to say that we are the boots on the ground in the region, but we all do this with a focus on the entire region. We are strong collaborators within our regions, working, for instance, with local chambers, local post-secondary institutions, business associations, and so many more. And we are a shared service within our communities. The contribution amounts received by municipalities and First Nations within our region are matched by the province of Nova Scotia through the Department of Economic Development. This past spring and summer, we completed our new strategic plan, which will guide the organization over the next 3 years. This strategic plan was recently approved unanimously by our Liaison and Oversight Committee, which is made up of representatives from our funding partners. We are 3/4 of the way through year 1 of this new strategic plan. Our vision for the Annapolis Valley is that it is a thriving regional economy delivering the highest quality of life in Canada. And our mission is to be the catalyst for a thriving, sustainable, and inclusive regional economy in the Annapolis Valley. And we've developed and identified 4 strategic priority areas. We'll work in business development, workforce development, sector development, and regional development. In business development, we want to provide support for new, emerging, existing businesses and enhance our already existing entrepreneurial culture. In workforce development, we'll work to attract and retain employees and workers while identifying and helping to fill current and future needs, gaps for our local employers. In sector development, we'll support the strengthening, diversification, and interconnectedness of the sectors within our economy. And in regional development, we'll work to enhance our collective and collaborative environment for greater efficiency and effectiveness and strengthen our relationship and leverage even more opportunities. I wanted to take a few minutes to highlight some of our programs, our projects, and our services. I won't be able to go into much detail or provide you with updates on all of them, but I want to highlight a few of them. So in our business development key strategic area, we provide one-on-one customized supports to businesses of all sizes across all sectors in the region. We assess their needs. We provide referrals and navigations to supports and resources. We provide support for startups and provide peer-to-peer opportunities that are all specifically tailored for our small to medium-sized businesses. The Nova Scotia MIT Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Program, affectionately known as REAP, the Valley REN took on the facilitator role for the Valley Regions team that is involved in this program. This is a pilot project with MIT, the Massachusetts Institute for Technology. There are 5 regions in the province that have formed teams and have been going through the MIT program to explore local strengths and comparative advantages, help create the right conditions for economic growth and innovation, and implement a project to invigorate our region. The program, actually, the final workshop wrapped up last week, but the Valley team has settled on a final project theme or must-win battle, according to MIT's program, around agricultural technology and how to promote the Valley as a testing bed or demonstration site for agricultural technology, and long-term, looking to develop an agricultural technology corridor and accelerator through the entire province. In workforce development, we are working with workforce support organizations in the region to help us create a regional workforce development strategy. The strategy researched and developed recommendations to address emerging labor market trends and has provided actionable solutions for talent attraction and retention. This strategy was built on the foundation of engagement with stakeholders in our region. We plan to release the final strategy this week, so stay tuned for that. I can tell you that the strategy has identified that we will need approximately 6,500 jobs filled between now and 2029 in various skill sets. We continue to work in partnership with the Annapolis Valley Chamber of Commerce and the Former Valley Business Leaders Initiative to create one comprehensive regional marketing campaign. We are working together to help promote the region from a business and labor force attraction, residential attraction, and tourism attraction standpoint. In December, we launched a new regional marketing website, and we're now in that testing and feedback mode. I hope some of you have been able to look at that link. Please take a look at it, and if you have any feedback, we're open to receiving that. We want to make this website as great as it can be. This website is really meant to contain as much information about our region that people who are looking to live or work here would need as they make that decision to move here. We will begin marketing the region first to physicians and skilled trades, as these are among the list of skills gaps and one of the highest in our region. In sector development, the STAR program, which I think last time I was here, I talked about, it stands for Strategic Tourism for Areas and Regions, and is an ACOA program, Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, and is essentially a step-by-step process to support economic growth in large tourism regions in Atlantic Canada. The program uses vetted consultants to give the region an assessment of the current tourism situation, an inventory of tourism assets, and develop a strategic regional tourism plan. This project was launched in November, with the first round of 5 community consultation sessions taking place in early December. We've also garnered the interest of Destination Canada, the national tourism organization. We are the first region in Nova Scotia to complete a STAR program. We have representatives all across the region on the working group that will lead our consultant through this project. And this project is industry-led, but facilitated by the Valley Ren. We have been engaging with leading manufacturers in our region through the Valley Manufacturing Task Force, which was launched in the summer of 2018. The goal was to identify and gain consensus on the top 3 challenges related to the sector in the region, and to collaborate on strategies to address those challenges. We've done a number of projects with the sector since 2018, such as working in partnership with NSCC on a contemporary leadership and manufacturing training. We're working on developing a 2-year continuous improvement initiative, as well as developing a supply chain study. In regional development, not only have we seen businesses pivot and adapt for the pandemic, but we have as well. Since the middle of May 2020, we established the Regional Economic Recovery Task Force and response teams. We created the recovery structure, collaborated with stakeholders on a recovery plan, and have been implementing that plan since June of 2020. To date, we've had over 100 meetings between all levels of the recovery task force, and there are 50 organizations involved throughout the region. Finally, I wanted to mention that we've actually moved into a new office in Kentville, and we now have a collaborative workspace with the Hans King CBDC and the Annapolis Valley Chamber of Commerce. We're really excited about the opportunities for collaboration, but also to work with all of the other business support organizations, business associations, and chambers of commerce throughout the region. Finally, I wanted to end the presentation by outlining the projects that we have leveraged funding for the region over the last 2 years that are all outside of the core funding that we receive from our municipalities and the province. So I want to quickly go through these. So you'll see the column that are the leveraged dollars and where we've accessed that funding, as well as an in-kind column, and then the contribution for the Valley Ren. So the first is the contemporary leadership and manufacturing training that I just spoke about. So we've leveraged $18,000 from the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency for that. The 2-year continuous improvement program that I just spoke about, we have confirmed the $52,000 from ACOA, and we are in process of confirming the $105,000 from WIPSI, which stands for Workplace Innovation and Productivity Skills Initiative through the province. Our annual connector program is 100% funded by the province of Nova Scotia, and this fiscal year we will receive by the end just over $90,000. The STAR program, Strategic Tourism for Areas and Regions program, is an ACOA program, and we will receive just over $110,000 for that. Once the STAR program wraps up and we have our solid recommendations, we'll look towards developing a winter tourism opportunity study to really take a look at how can we extend the tourism season and make it year round. So that we will be accessing $25,000 from ACOA. Supply chain analysis study that I just spoke of is $95,000 from ACOA. The Nova Scotia MIT REAP Valley team accessed $25,000 from Onside, which is the Organization for Nova Scotia Innovation-Driven Entrepreneurship, and was developed from the first round of MIT REAP that the province went through. And just recently, we found out that we will be competing with the 4 other teams throughout the province to potentially win $100,000 for our team, which we will be competing for and competing very hard for our region. We partnered with all of the other regional enterprise networks throughout the province on a virtual advisor program and accessed $45,000 from ACOA. And then our Regional Economic Recovery Task Force accessed just over $69,000 from ACOA. And the final project I did just want to mention is a project that we call Taking Care of the Valley. So we are working on this project with Peer Labs. We are supporting them. They are leading the project, but we will help them facilitate a women-led participatory research and design project that brings together stakeholders and caregivers to learn and generate ideas and test small-scale prototypes. So this project really will address systemic barriers for women by integrating caregiving responsibilities and work primarily shouldered by women in the region. So we're very excited about this. There's been a lot of interest generated in this. There's a part-time coordinator doing it. We're conducting interviews with, and there's been lots of interest on the steering committee that will help guide us through this. So that was accessed through WAGE, which is Women and Gender Equality Canada. So that we accessed $350,000. So at the end of the day, just over $1 million we've leveraged for the region outside of our core funding. And finally, I thank you so much. I tried to speed through that as quickly as possible. Hopefully I stayed within the 10 minutes, but I did just want to say on behalf of our board chair, Paul Dixon, who was unable to attend with me this evening, if any of you have any questions or really just want to connect and have a coffee chat at any time, he wanted me to pass along his openness to do that. And he'd love to have those conversations so we can keep them open and communication open. So thank you so much. I'll stop sharing my screen here. I can get back just 1 second here. Oh, there we go. Perfect.
You had me worried there for a minute, Jennifer. I know your luck with computers, so.
Yeah. Technology doesn't love me at the best of times.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you so much for that presentation, and I will open it up to members of council to ask you questions. Councillor Zabian.
Thanks, Jennifer. Long time no see.
Yes.
Just have a question for you, and I hate to put you on the spot, and you may not know this, you may want to get it to me, but do you have the numbers where your funding comes from, how much from each unit?
I don't have it. I can spout out what I think it is,
Okay,
but I can definitely email you that.
Okay.
So the town of Kentville's contribution is just over 28,000.
Mm-hmm.
The County of Kings is just over 160,000.
Mm-hmm.
West Hants is just over 67.
Yeah.
Middleton is just over 14.
Okay.
Berwick is just over 14, and Glooscap First Nation is 7,500.
And did I hear correctly that Wolfville's re-engaged, or?
We're very optimistic, and
Okay.
we're hoping that they will.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Hi, Jen. Thanks
Hi.
for the presentation. So just wanted to make a few comments. I checked out the website, the Have It All one, and it's fabulous. I think it's great. Nice to see the new place in conjunction with AV, CC, and CBDC. And also, just want to make a comment around, it's nice to see, the taxpayer dollars going towards what it's going towards with what you're doing with REN. And I mean, you think of, $128,000 and you're leveraging north of $1 million. I mean, that says it all to me. The workforce development program, and I know you talked about 6,500 skilled employees needed between now and 2029, I think you said. What sort of success has REN had with that workforce development program thus far? Just in a nutshell.
Yeah, so we actually are just about ready to launch it publicly. So the report hasn't been released yet. So we're very excited to do that and to actually begin the recommendations, begin implementing the recommendations in the strategy. So first we've worked with stakeholders in the region, and we've worked with and engaged with all of the workforce support organizations in our region to develop that. We did an extensive amount of consultation with, from high school, post-secondary, employer, employee, general public. So we had just under 800 points of engagement into this strategy across all of those stakeholders. And I know that in regions in Ontario that have, 3 million population, they're getting much less points of connection into strategies of similar nature. So we were really pleasantly surprised at that. So this week it will come out, and we'll be forming what we call a workforce alliance to actually help us implement this strategy. So it is a strategy that was developed by us in partnership with all of our local partners, but it's going to take everybody within that ecosystem of workforce supports to help us implement. So we're super excited to dig into the implementation side of that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great work. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Jennifer, I'm going to say not only as the mayor of Kentville, but as well as the outgoing chair of the Liaison and Oversight Committee, how proud I am of the work that's being done by our Valley REN. And sometimes you guys just don't brag enough. And so I'm just going to pitch it out there. The work that you started with the manufacturing task force, bringing together the 9 big manufacturers in our area together back, as far as 2018 was just huge, and we've seen that roll across our province, and other RENs have taken that on. So that that really is, I'm going to say, kudos to your leadership as CEO in this organization. And the other thing as well is that when COVID hit, I know that our REN really did a pivot. And I think it was the first week after the shutdown, you were already organizing the 3 levels of regional economic recovery task force teams, and we were on Zoom meeting. And the thing is that you were bringing together the people that we wouldn't normally talk to. Unless I have something specific, I rarely go out and talk to the folks at NSBI, but all of a sudden, I had them in one of the windows, and they were telling us every program. So, we were right there at the coalface and could bring those programs back to our towns and communities. So I want to say the work that our Valley REN has done is absolutely amazing. The other thing that I want to point out to folks is that the town of Kentville does have a community economic development person, coordinator, and how you guys work hand in hand, and how that all becomes part of our bigger economic development strategy. So I'm very proud of the work you do, and thank you very much for this presentation tonight. Looking forward to when we do the annual general meeting, and perhaps folks can go out and hear some more good news stories. So again, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Take care.
All right. So the directors have provided their reports for your review, and we'll be accepted into record without review unless there are questions. We have 3 recommendations coming out of the reports, which will be presented. CAO Trope, could you please introduce our department reports and recommendations?
Sure. So Mayor Snow, as you outlined, we have a number of reports here tonight. If there are any questions specific to the directors, we have everybody here online. Following that, we are going to do 3 pieces with regards to insurance, capital reserves, and tax exemptions as well. A little bit later tonight, under new business, we're actually going to be spending some time doing a deeper dive into the proposed sewer budget, which is of course a regional budget with Kentville share. So tonight, if there's any questions, we'll direct them towards the various directors who are online.
Excellent, CAO Trope. Thank you. Councillor Zabia.
Thank you, CAO. My question is actually for Director Bell. And they're both snow related. I know you're probably tired of hearing about snow. I have 2 questions. The first one, I think I know the answer to, but I've had a few people that live on Main Street and primarily in the Cornwallis Inn or Main Street Station, sorry. And I guess at night when they're loading snow, and I know it's the beeps that go off on the machines, there's probably no way to, and it's probably for safety, obviously, to keep them on. People say they can't sleep. I know they're out there working and they've done it. I got to say the Public Works team has done a phenomenal job this year, probably the best year and probably the worst winter, but they've done a phenomenal job. So that's one. And the other question is, some citizens have mentioned to me about something called high gates to go on the snow plows. Have you ever heard of those? So I'll leave it with you, but the reason I mention those is there's a lot of people that live in some of the high traffic areas like Park Street, for example. And when they come home, and this is a good question, somebody brought this to me last week. When they come home from work, if they've shoveled out and now the plow's gone by and then push them back in, what are they supposed to do with their vehicle? Just leave it on Park Street? It's a little different in a subdivision. I know I'm out there and I use my blower and I clean the driveway and then one of the guys will go by and they shove me back in and I just smile and wave and laugh. But if you're in an area where there's a lot of traffic, there's a couple of YouTube videos and I don't know if it's something that you've looked at before or something that it'd be nice to look at it and know if it could be looked at. Thank you.
Councillor Zabin, could you repeat what that item is? I didn't get it.
Called a high gate.
High gate?
Goes on the plow so that when it goes in front of driveways, it doesn't block them in again. It lifts up and down. So it pushes the snow instead of blocking the driveway again.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Zabian. We have looked at something similar in the past. At the time, it wasn't really feasible with the number of driveways and the way it would work with our gear, but it is something that could be looked into again. Maybe they've improved it since our last experience, in demonstration of that type of equipment. The other question was it the beepers that you're asking about during nighttime?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not at downtown, but I can imagine that would probably drive me insane if I heard that all night. But yeah,
right. It's the only time we can really do the snow pile removals, and the guys come in either at midnight or 2 a.m. when the traffic is low. But certainly when they're in backup mode, it is required to have that safety beeper, no matter what time of day it is. And yeah, I understand it shorts. I'm sure it's loud in the middle of the night.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
I had 2 items for Parks and Recreation, just to let Rachel know, if nobody else has brought it up, that the lights on the tree at the corner of Belcher and Oakdean during the last storm, I think they became separated. So all that's lit up is the base. So probably we could turn those off and maybe look at hooking them all back up again next Christmas. But none of the other ones are going, just the last maybe 3 or 4 strings on the bottom. So just wanted to let her know about that. And Engineering Public Works. I was into Pauline's Golden Thread the other day. I had some tailoring I needed to get done, and I had to climb over that icy snowbank, and that wasn't really very, very good. So I'm wondering why we're not cleaning the right side of Cornwallis Street in the downtown, especially in front of those businesses on that right side. That was, it was pretty slippery, and I wouldn't want to be any older than what I was trying to get over that snowbank. So actually it wasn't the snowbank, it was the cement snow ice that was the problem. So.
Right. So, Councillor Maxwell, that was between the actual sidewalk area and the curb, sort of that in between area.
Yeah.
Where you get out of your car.
Yeah.
So in the downtown core, of course, that section, we make a courtesy pass, and anything that's in front of a business is the business owner's responsibility to push to the curb. So we make that sort of swath of 5 feet or so with our sidewalk machines for the walking area, and then that remaining 2 to 3 feet, sometimes more than that, oftentimes where the decorative light poles and things are, that is the business owner's responsibility to push to the gutter so that we can clear up that remaining part when the larger plow goes through. But it isn't always done from one business to the next quite the same as it is perhaps at the at equally at all of them. But that's the area I think you're talking about between the sort of the parking between the gutter and the sidewalk, I believe.
And the curb, yeah, like I parked and then I had to get up over top of this.
Over it.
Yeah, in this ice bank. And it just seems like downtown, that's pretty well cleared, so people don't have to go up over top of those mounds that the plow leaves as they go by. So.
Right. Well, you're talking farther up. I was not familiar with where that shop is, or at least not off the top of my head.
Kind of right across from Matart's Law Firm.
Okay, still right downtown then. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of next to the Cornwallis or next to Main Street Station.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's where I thought you were talking. Yeah. So still
Yeah.
in the downtown, still in the downtown core, but
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have a look at that. But I think it is certainly the responsibility of the business owners to push that out to the gutter.
But that's what I'm saying is it was clear. The sidewalk was clear. It's
Right.
just that the snow mound, that when the plow goes by and it leaves that's what we're clearing on the other streets. Like
Right.
we pile it up, and then the guy comes along and picks it up and puts it in a dump truck and carts it away. That was never carted away.
I see. It's still in the park lane, not in the section of sidewalk that's sort of
Yeah.
where you don't walk. Okay.
No, I could walk
Yeah.
clearly on the sidewalk. It was
Gotcha.
getting to the
Okay.
sidewalk that
Right.
was the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that depends on the day and at which point we have or hadn't hauled it away, but it was a multi-night process to haul the downtown piles away because there's just nowhere else to put it. But yeah, we hauled I think upwards of 500 loads there that previous storm over a 2-night period.
Oh, I'm sure. And it was pretty heavy stuff too.
Sure was.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Councillor York.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention in Director Gentleman's report, or send along my congratulations to Kirsten Duncan for completing the stage so far in her Rick-Hansen certification. It goes a long way towards the future of the town and what we plan to do. So it's great that we have staff who are dedicated and getting that on the go. So congratulations to Kirsten.
Pass that
Thank you
along
for
to her.
mentioning that. Are there any further questions for the directors before we move into the recommendations?
Oh, yeah.
Councillor Maxwell.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just wondering, we're talking about some flagpoles in Center Square. I'm just wondering how many flagpoles we're looking at in Center Square. I would like to recommend more than one. That's because I think as our Inclusion and Accessibility Committee is looking at, we have different special events groups that have flags. So, we would need the Canadian flag, the Nova Scotia flag, and then a space for these special flags, unless we fly the Canadian flag and the Nova Scotia flag on the same pole, just with the Canadian flag above. So
If it could be.
when we go to do that, could we look at maybe 3 poles at least?
If I could, Mayor Snow, so yes, Councillor, that's exactly what we're looking at, is something that would be more easily accessible than what a traditional full-size pole would be, but also something that would give us that flexibility, just as you described. So we were looking at it as 3 potential poles there.
Okay, great, thank you.
Phone calls start when both of those flags fly together. All right, if there's no further questions, then we will move on to our first recommendation coming from Director Kroll with regards to our general insurance quote.
And if I could, just
Oh,
before that,
certainly.
Mayor, no, it's perfectly okay. And I just wanted to set the preamble here that Director Kroll and her team have done some proactive work here. Most of the insurance premiums across municipal units have been increasing quite substantially. And so in this case here, Director Kroll and her team have had an opportunity to speak with our provider, and would like to add that I fully support the recommendation that she's making here this evening. So with that, I'll turn that over to Director Kroll.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. Yes, we, as council may recall, in November of 2020, we extended our contract with BFL for general insurance and risk management services for an additional year. And that extension ends March 31st, 2022. So as CEO Troke mentioned, we're looking at a variety of pressures on the insurance world, from catastrophic wildfires, flooding, etc., as well as liability claims, which are exceedingly increasing in Canada, and not only in Canada, Nova Scotia, and in actually Kentville. Insurance companies have put stricter rules in place regarding the amount and breadth of coverage that they will provide and to which clients. And the overall supply of insurance has actually decreased since 2020 because some large companies have been bought up by others, or they have disappeared entirely. The municipal world is sometimes not an area that many insurance companies want to get into because of liability issues. Typically, we usually go for a request for proposal in January of every 4 years or so, to start in April of that year for the new contract. But because of the possibility of supply uncertainty around the COVID-19 pandemic and our outstanding liability claims currently being managed by BFL Canada, I asked them for a quote for the next fiscal year. BFL is open to dealing with us in the next year. It doesn't anticipate any issues as to the choice of limits, values, and the types of coverage that it will offer us, but it does offer us 2 options. Option 1 being the status quo, which is a deductible of $25,000 for liability claims, and all other deductibles would stay the same. Option 2 gives us municipal liability deductible increase from $25,000 to $50,000, which would affect general liability, errors and omissions, and environmental liability. So I attached a spreadsheet for your information that shows what we paid in 2021 and what the estimate with option 1 and what the estimate with option 2 would be. Option 1 would give us a 17.8% increase overall, while option 2 would give us a very small increase of 2.4%. However, bear in mind that liability deductible would move up $25,000. So in any additional claim that would be sent to the town, if in that case would mean a $50,000 deductible for any liability claims. So we're looking for the operating fund, and in the middle of the second page, I show the possible increases for each of the fund broken down in the town, the sanitary sewer, and the water utility operating funds. Overall, the increase with option 1 would be $37,518, whereas option 2 would be $4,964. Now, those are estimates. Those are not actually hard coded in at this time. It's their best estimate at this time. So my recommendation reads that I recommend to Council Advisory Committee that the town of Kentville extend its relationship with BFL Canada for general insurance and risk management services for 1 year, April 1, 2022 to March 31st, 2023. And I also recommend that the town select option 1 or the status quo deductible.
Thank you very much for your work on that and for the work of your team, Director. It's great that we count on you to do these proactive on our behalf. So we do have a recommendation from Director Kroll with regards to the general insurance quote. And if we were to turn that into a motion, that the CAC recommend to the February 28, 2022 council meeting for approval to extend its relationship with BFL Canada for general insurance and risk management services for 1 year from April 1st, 2022 to March 31st, 2023, and further that the town opt to maintain status quo coverage. If someone could move that, please.
So moved.
Councillor Zabian, thank you. And the second, Deputy Mayor, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that CAC recommend to the February 28, 2022 council meeting for approval to extend its relationship with BFL Canada for general insurance and risk management services for 1 year, April 1st, 2022 to March 31st, 2023, and further that the town opt to maintain status quo coverage. Is there any discussion on this matter? Councillor Zabian.
Yes, thanks, Director Cole. And I guess just for a little bit of clarity and maybe CAO Troke can chime in. So I want to understand this. So if there's an issue, the town would pay the first 25,000, and then if the insurance company deems that they're going to cover it, they would continue to pay after we paid the 25.
Yes, that's correct. We would pay the first 25,000 of any liability claim. Mhm.
Okay. And the other issue is, or the other question I have for CAO Troke, I guess, are these liability claims ever brought to the public? Does the public ever know the details on them?
So thank you, Councillor, and through the mayor to the councillor. Typically what would happen is individuals, if there was a claim, so a liability claim, that would be investigated. Typically between, not just the insurance company, but it might even be a representative from the other half. And so typically in that type of a process, if there was deemed no fault from the town, then obviously an individual could seek legal recourse. If there was a settlement based on the information was there, typically all the parties in that would agree to the settlement. So typically that's not something that would become like a public disclosure. That's the normal process that pretty much every municipal unit would use.
Thank you. I just asked because it came to my attention the other day that there was a conflict of issue with myself and one of the other councillors, and I'm understanding that the town has hired a solicitor to represent the other councillor and to pay his legal fees. And I'm just curious why the town would be paying the 25,000 to defend a councillor who didn't declare a conflict of interest.
But I think
I thought, so just 1 second and then you can go. I thought we had been told that legal doesn't defend a particular councillor. It's kind of for the whole town. So I'm just curious why the town would be footing the bill for a councillor's defense. Thank you.
So if I could on that, first of all, I don't believe there's been any information with regards to any ongoing court actions handed out to any other individuals. So I'm not sure where you would get that information. But second, with regards to any time that an item is brought forward by a councillor, if it was being considered at all by the insurance, that would go essentially to the insurance company and they have their own legal review. So it has nothing to do with a decision by the CAO or any other member of council. All the policies have that process where it would go to be reviewed and their own legal counsel within the insurance company would do a review. But also, to my knowledge, no information has been shared with any third parties about any ongoing cases.
That's strange because my lawyer told me the opposite of what you're saying. But regardless, who decides whether it is handled by the town, though? Somebody has to make that decision. Like if I came forward tomorrow and said, CEO Troke, I'm being sued, somebody in this organization has to decide whether you're going to represent me and pay my legal bill or if you're not. Because you're not going to send it to insurance.
Councillor, you're out of order here.
Where am I out of order? I'm asking a question.
No, you're not. You're past what is
I'm
on the
asking a
discussion.
question.
We
I
are
am
just.
asking,
We are just.
you are out of order right now. You don't want the public to know that you're paying Councillor Gerard's legal fees right now. You're out of order, Mayor Snow, and I hope everybody at home is watching. I am not out of order.
Solicitor, could you
You are
please help with
discriminating
this?
me because of my skin color. Again. That's deplorable. You let everybody talk in this room. but
Counselor,
me.
you're out of order. You
No,
are
I'm not
not.
out of order. I'm not out of order, Mayor Snow. I am not out of order. I am talking. I have the
Counselor,
moment to
you're out of
speak.
order.
I am speaking.
Counselor Zabian, you are out of
I am
order.
allowed to speak, Mayor Snow.
You are allowed to speak on the matter before this council, which
I
is a
asked a question
motion
about
with
the
regards.
liability. I asked a question about the liability. You don't like where the question's going, so you cut me off.
No, Counselor.
You're not
You're past-
transparent. You're not transparent. I rest my case.
Counselor Maxwell, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I need Deb to help me to understand, but when I'm doing my, picking my insurance, who's ever going to pay my insurance? If I had as big a gap between option 1 and option 2 as those documents show, I would probably be going with option 2. So I don't understand why we would go with option 1 that's going to cost us more money when we could go with option 2 that would cost us less. I just don't understand that. So if you could explain that to me, I'd appreciate it.
I guess it's a matter of how much risk anyone is willing to take. I tend to err on the side of caution. At least I know what the $25,000 is the most we'll pay for a liability. We have no idea knowing if any or many liability claims will hit the town of Kentville next year. So I guess it's just a matter of throwing dice. Either option is acceptable to the town, but it's a matter of how much risk you're willing to take. And I am erring on the side of caution. I'm saying that I would rather take the higher amount for option 1, because it could easily be wiped out with a couple of lawsuits, for example, that are very costly. Like, lawsuits are not cheap things. They don't usually, fall under $10,000. They usually are much, much greater than that. So I guess I'm erring on the side of caution, but either option is available to the town.
If I could just add, I would to Director Kroll's comment. In some years, you may have very few claims that would come forward. In other years, you may have multiple. And remember, this is kind of a very wide range and covering policy that we would carry. So, everything from a slip and fall to, essentially could be anything storm-related damages or whatever. And so typically with a $25,000 deductible, what is the maximum any claim that the town would have to incur would be that $25,000. By taking a $50,000 deductible, if you were to have multiple claims, even 2 or 3 ongoing, essentially you're doubling or tripling the premium that you could have to pay. Now again, and to the councilor's comment, if you had 0 claims in a year, you're absolutely right. Option 2 would pay you less. But I think to Director Kroll's comment, and in the complex world that we live in, that the probability of having some different ongoing pieces is the probability of 0 is not very high. And so the going with option 1 does create, while a slightly higher premium, creates more certainty from a perspective of that bottom line payment. So that's kind of the nuances between the two.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, CAO. Are we ready for the question? The question is that CAC recommend to the February 28th, 2022 council meeting for approval to extend its relationship with BFL Canada for general insurance and risk management services for 1 year from April 1st, 2022 to March 31st, 2023. And further, that the town opt to maintain the status quo coverage. Deputy Mayor, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Gerard?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian? And I say yes, the motion is carried. Director Kroll, you have the floor again with regards to withdrawal from capital reserve, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. I've brought a memo related to capital program for the town of Kentville for the year 21-22. We have some partial funding requests here. Several projects are complete or partially complete, and they require a resolution from council to withdraw the funds from our reserve funds. You can see the different projects there and the budget that is cited, that was cited from reserve, and the amount for draw number 1 is in the far right column. I'm looking for budgeted items, $207,090.72, and for projects that were added, another $10,265.85 for a total of $217,356.57. The town of Kentville Capital Reserve general allocation contains $1,849,611. And after this withdrawal, it will contain $1,672,730. The town of Kentville Capital Reserve Recreation contains $108,315. And after this withdrawal, it will contain $67,739. So I recommend to Council Advisory Committee that the attached resolution be approved for the withdrawal of $217,356.57 from the following reserves: the town of Kentville Capital Reserve general allocation, $176,780.88, and the town of Kentville Capital Reserve Recreation, $40,575.69. These transfers will partially fund capital acquisitions during this fiscal year, and I ask that this resolution be placed on the next docket of Town Council for ratification.
Thank you, Director. We have a recommendation from Director Kroll that CAC recommend to the February 28, 2022 council meeting for approval to withdraw $217,356.57 from 2 Town of Kentville capital reserves to partially fund the budgeted 2021-22 projects as detailed in the attached report. If someone could move that, please. Councillor Maxwell, thank you. And a seconder. Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that CAC recommend to the February 28, 2022 council meeting for approval to withdraw $217,356.57 from 2 Town of Kentville capital reserves to partially fund the budgeted 2021-22 projects as detailed in the attached report. Is there any discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is that CAC recommend to the February 28, 2022 council meeting for approval to withdraw $217,356.57 from 2 Town of Kentville capital reserves to partially fund the budgeted 2021-2022 projects as detailed in the attached report. Deputy Mayor, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Gerard?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Director Kroll, the floor is yours again with low income tax exemption.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. I bring this every year to council. It's a partial tax exemption to individual property owners who meet certain requirements. Every year you must pass the necessary resolution to set out the maximum exemption and the income ceiling. And as a guideline, the town of Kentville sets the income ceiling at the level equal to the maximum old age security and guaranteed income supplement paid to a married couple. The bottom of page 2 and 1 in the top of page 2, you'll see the authority that grants the town the authority to continue with this particular program. And in the middle of page 2, you'll see the analysis for the last 5 years, or the history of the last 5 years, of the income ceilings and the exemption amounts, and the number of persons who have actually qualified for this program, and the amount that we've actually expended in our general ledger for those exemptions. We tie our increase these days, because we're on a sliding scale, to the cost of living figure used for the assessment cap by Property Valuation Services Corporation. And for 2022, the cap rate is 5.4%. All participants of the program in 2021 will be sent an application for the exemption in 2022. As well, a notice will appear on the town's website and other means of social media detailing the particulars of the program. And in addition, if a previous applicant has not applied, we typically give them a phone call and ask them if they have misplaced their paperwork, or if they intend to apply in the current year. So my recommendation reads that I recommend to Council Advisory Committee that the attached resolution for low income tax exemption for the 2022-23 year be approved and forwarded to Town Council for ratification. The exemption amount ranges from $271 to $575. The income ceiling is $28,436, and the deadline for applications is June 30, 2022.
Thank you very much for that, Director Kroll. And just one of the statements that you made in this report to council is with regards to the specific phone calls that your staff makes to residents in the town of Kentville, and that truly does go beyond. Above and beyond, and truly appreciated. And when especially now, as we hear so much with regards to the cost of living, and people staying in their homes, and that I think that this is just one of those things that helps out on this. So again, thank you very much. So based on the recommendation that Director Kroll has provided, a motion that CAC recommend to the February 28th, 2022 council meeting for approval of the low income tax exemption resolution for the 2022-2023 year as detailed in the attached report. And if someone could move that, please. Councillor York, thank you. And a seconder. Deputy Mayor, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that CAC recommend to the February 28th, 2022 council meeting for approval of the low income tax exemption resolution for 2022-23 year as detailed in the attached report. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is that CAC recommend to the February 28th, 2022 council meeting for approval of the low income tax exemption resolution for the 2022-2023 year as detailed in the attached report. Deputy Mayor, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Gerard?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you very much. Now, before we move on to accept the staff reports, did anyone else have any questions they wanted to ask staff with regards to the reports that they provided, or clarification on anything? There being no hands, I would accept a motion to have the staff reports, to accept the staff reports as delivered. If someone could move that, please. Councillor Huntley, thank you. And Councillor York, thank you for the second. It has been moved and seconded that staff reports be accepted as delivered. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. We have no unfinished business this evening. However, we do have two pieces of correspondence. CAO, can I hand those over to you, please?
Yes, certainly. So the first is that of Glutskap Curling Club, And of course, they are undergoing through some strategic planning exercise. They're looking for support, a letter of support from the town, so they may go forward and apply for various grants. This is not a direct ask of the town to be supporting with funds. And of course, if there is any ask from the club, they would come in with a separate ask. At this point, this is just specifically looking for the letter to write, or the town to write a letter, which I believe we have done in the past, which they then can go out and try and pursue grants either from other organizations or from other levels of government. So their request is in the package, or the background information is in the package. And we'll just be looking here to see if council would write a supportive letter for the organization.
All right, thank you very much, CAO. So we've done this in the last 3 years in support of their 5-year strategic plan. So the first year they did their kitchen, they redid their ice making machine, and this year or last year it was their accessible entryway, and this year they're doing some more upgrades, reducing their operational costs. So if there's no issue, I am prepared to write a letter supporting their grant request. So if anyone has anything they want to add to that, if not, we'll move on to our next piece of correspondence, please.
So the second item is we actually received this correspondence, which came from the chair of the Green Municipal Fund Council, Ben Henderson. And this was to Quest. So Omar's been in to do a presentation here to council previously. And this is with regards to establishing new energy monitoring and analysis systems in the 3 municipalities within the County of Kings. And so a $25,000 grant has been received by Quest from the Green Municipal Fund. So we just received that information, thought we would want to make sure that council was aware of something that we received some information on in the past. And it looks like that Quest has been successful in getting some funding to kickstart some of these pieces that they have underway.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, CAO. There's significant grant money available through FCM. So if you, when you're out and about chatting with folks, anything they're doing from a green perspective, there may be grants available, particularly for buildings in municipalities and that sort of thing. So moving right on to our new business, and our first item is a request for decision G70 meeting policy. And Deputy Mayor Savage has provided a request for decision to review the G70 meeting policy. Deputy Mayor, did you wish to speak to your request?
Thank you, Your Worship. So just kind of touch on some of the points that outlined in this request for decision, which is outlined in our G70 policy as it stands now. My recommendation is just to have a discussion around this policy, perhaps some additions or deletions, and I'd like to see this occur over the next few meetings and next few CAC meetings. For folks to have a look at it, to make any additions or deletions, or maybe we keep it just as it is, but just to have a really good review of it. I think that a policy review of our council meeting policy is an exercise that really can educate council and ensure that we have proper decorum in our meetings as we further the business of the town. I think that certainly through a thorough review, if it can be completed such that there's a good, clear understanding of that policy so that all the members of council concur as to how the meetings should be conducted. Just a little bit of background, where it talks about every council member is to consider the well-being and the interest of the town of Kemptville always, and that every council member is to contribute to the development and the evaluation of town policies. And every council member is to participate wholly in all the meetings to which they are appointed. Lastly, that the town of Kemptville has adopted Robert's Rules of Orders for conducting its meetings. And I feel that it would be in the best interest of this council to do a deep dive into this policy, that we can all agree on how we wish to conduct our meetings These meetings of council are the means to get the business of the town done as efficiently as possible. So I put this forward to the council for consideration and discussion. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Deputy. So you've all been provided with a copy of the policy, and so which means that you get homework. So members of council are requested to review the current policy and make red line changes, and you can either do it electronically using the review feature of Microsoft Word, or you can use just do a paper copy, completely up to you. The review docs should be submitted to Jennifer West by Tuesday, March the 8th, so that she can include them in the March 14th CAC package. And that will be the first meeting where we start looking at this and how we go forward. Now, most towns and HRM all have meeting policies. So if you want to look at how other places are doing it, whether you look at Wolfville or Bridgetown or HRM. HRMs, I'll tell you, is 80 some odd pages, so completely up to you what you wanted to look at. Councillor Zabian.
Oh, hold on. Thank you. I'm glad this made it to the agenda, as I had tried to get it on last month. I went through the policy, and again, everybody will do it at their own leisure, and I'll do it again. I don't think, just want to say, I don't think it's the policy. I think it's the items. When you chair a meeting, Mayor Snow, with all due respect to you, that you kind of pick and choose who's going to follow which rules. And I don't think we're even following Robert's rules. We seem to be following Sandra Snow's rules, because in Robert's rules, it very clearly says that any member of council, there is a point where they can bring items to the agenda. So are we following Robert's rules? Are we following Sandra's rules? Are we following this policy? And that's the real problem here, which I mentioned at the whole beginning of the meeting. We're not really following policy here. And whether it's bias or I don't know what it is, but you kind of pick and choose when you want to. And I don't even know if the public can hear me right now because I've been muted so many times. So unfortunately, I don't know what else to say. The policy is great. I don't see any huge issues in it. If we could follow it and let everybody on this screen, our Brady Bunch group here, all have an equal time to talk and able to express themselves and not be muted or blocked. I mean, I've sent you many emails asking for items on the agenda, and your typical fashion is, I will not be entertaining that, or you just flat out ignore me. And so I'm not sure what you want me to think, but I just want the public to know that I do try to engage. They can FOI pop emails, and I'm continually blocked here. And I've tried to have conversation with you. You don't want it. You just don't want me on this council, unfortunately. So to bring the policy forward and review it wholesomely, I think that's great, Deputy Mayor, but I just don't see what that's going to do, because we are following the Sandra Snow rules for our meetings. We're not following any policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor York.
So I think it's a great initiative to go through the just how meetings are meant to be run. It would probably, or would it be possible to also have a public discourse on what Robert's rules are, so that people following along, it's kind of an unfamiliar way to operate. And if you're not on boards and committees, perhaps we can do a refresher for the community as a whole, so they can keep us accountable as well, and make sure that we are being, make sure that we are following our own set of guidelines. So if we can incorporate somehow working that information out to the public as well. So I think it's a great exercise, as long as we also get some public engagement with it, in terms of like a debrief, or just making sure that they have the same access to the same information, just so that we're all being held accountable from not only each other, but the public for which we serve. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor York. Annex C speaks to the motions that typically the council would see. The Federation, the Municipal Federation in Newfoundland, had done some work with Eli Mina. He's a parliamentarian, and he's a huge expert, and you can Google him. Eli Mina is his name, and he actually wrote a document for them as part of their training session. And we could embed that in this document. It's very concise and, really points out the job of the chair and the different elements. So that's great. I'll circulate that to everyone just so that you can see what it looks like. Was there anything else? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. I'm just going to make a note that I am bringing this forward tonight under the such policy as we have it now, G70, under 4.24, where it says council recommendations as required, new ideas, business or policy changes shall be introduced using the Council Advisory Committee request for decision form as per the council report policy. So I'm bringing this forward to council tonight under the current G70 policy that we have now, just for viewers in case they're confused by that. Thank
Exactly. You. Thank you. Thank you very much. And, part of the reason that this council or the previous council actually enacted a request for decision was training that the council of the day did with Gordon McIntosh. And it was a way of members of council such that they could bring new business before council. And as well, it would provide information to the members of council so that they could do some pre-meeting study. And that's the problem with just throwing things on the agenda the night of the meeting, is that not everyone has access to the information. And, if you're going into decision making, it's always nice to have good information, because good information leads to good decision making. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I'm just wondering what the format will be for going over this and reviewing this. Like, what kind of format are you looking at to review this document?
I don't know the answer to that, Councillor Maxwell. What do you suggest?
Well, I'm just wondering if it's a public, a public meeting where we're going to just all talk about what we think and, with the way we think things should be, or if we're going to submit things, or are we going to have a separate in-camera session to look at it?
Policy doesn't go in camera, Councillor.
Okay.
So both of those.
Is there no plan for how we're going to discuss this?
Yes. It's to ask what you want to do. So you've been given homework. So go away, look at this. And then we come back, back together next meeting. And the question at that point in time is, do we meet 30 minutes before our next CAC meeting to talk about this and go through? We can do paragraph by paragraph. But again, it's open to members of council. This document, this meeting policy, should have been one of the first ones we did after the election, because this is how we play in the sandbox, so to speak. But COVID and these screens are horrible. So it will be great when we're all in the same room together and we can talk about this. So I would suggest that if everyone goes through it, comes back with your ideas, and we can meet 30 minutes before and do it on live Facebook, just that we don't we don't start the meeting agenda. We start the policy work first, if that's acceptable.
Yeah, that's acceptable to me. I was just wondering how we were going to go about doing this. As you know, we've done this before. We did it in our first term, and and we did make some changes to it, but I don't see those changes here.
We made the whole policy up. There were actually 11 separate policies before this document.
We discussed, I remember, about the agenda, because there was quite a bit of discussion on when we could add things to an agenda and when we couldn't add things to an agenda. And we decided that, where possible, we would give the RFD and we would put it in. But if there were times when we couldn't do that, it was still acceptable for councillor to bring forward an item for the agenda. It's just that council would have to decide whether or not they were going to allow that item to go on the agenda or not.
Right.
And so I don't see that that spelled out in this policy. So that's something I may ask to have spelled out in the policy. Okay, I'll be okay with that.
Okay, thank
Thank
you. Councillor Zabian.
Yeah, thank you. I just kind of want to catch on to Councillor Maxwell's statement that she just made. You know, it's great if a person can prepare an RFD and sit down and have the time to have your information in advance, but there are times when things come up and you want to bring them public to council, and I guess I want to ask you, Mayor Snow, how come there's been times when you don't ask council for them to consider a subject? You abruptly stop and say you're not going to entertain it, or you're not prepared to discuss it. You've done that numerous times with me specifically. And really, as Councillor Maxwell just said, and Robert's rules, the decision's really made up to the whole group of us, whether we want to entertain a topic. So I'm just wondering, that would be a huge problem to me, because again, it's a democracy and it's not a dictatorship where you can say, well, I don't want this item on the agenda, and I feel I shouldn't have to give. Sorry.
Councillor, are you asking questions about the policy, or are you asking questions about me?
Well, I guess it's both. It's a question.
No, it's not. It's not both.
Well, it is
Now,
both.
what you're doing is you're now picking up the scab. And I would say that you ask the question that you want answered, or you move on.
I'm asking the question, but I'm wondering, I guess, yeah, I've asked you, what entitles you to decide whether you
I'm
want.
the chair.
No, but
You seem to forget that.
you're the chair, yes.
You did
but
not,
you're not allowed
you
to
were
make the
told.
agenda. You're solely though. You can't decide every item that goes on the agenda. Why would we be here then? You wouldn't need a council. We could save the taxpayers a lot of money and just pay you to run the town, and we'll all stay home then. Where would the logic be in that?
Councillor Zabian, you were told to put in an RFD.
No, you told me you weren't going to entertain me, and I've got emails. Do you want me to send them to everybody? Send them back? You said I am not prepared to entertain that. And you did it at the last meeting. You said I'm not prepared to have this conversation, and then you abruptly went on to the next thing.
Councillor Zabian, there was an approved motion on the floor when you spoke at the last meeting.
Well, I'm talking about the 13th of January, a different time. You said I'm not prepared to have this conversation, and then you went on to the next.
Because I had answered you in an email. Now, this discussion is past what we are talking about.
But it's repetitive. The problem
it is, and you keep repeating yourself.
Because we're in the same situation each time, Mayor Snow. With all due respect.
There is no respect coming from you. I can tell you that right now.
Excuse me? Where's the, excuse me? I have, you know what? I don't know how we are functioning as a town with you leading us right now. I don't know how this council can contribute with you leading us. I don't know how the.
Councillor Zabian, you're out of order.
I am out of order all the time with you, Mayor Snow, only me though, because I'm gonna speak up when nobody else has said anything. This is terrible. This is unbelievable. And if I'm on mute, I am sorry, folks, but this is terrible. This is not a dictatorship. This is beautiful, Kentville. We're all entitled to speak and share our thoughts.
Councillor Zabian, you're out of order.
Again, thank you, and you're in order. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. If I'll just go through the chair, but I'm sort of referring back to something that Councillor Maxwell mentioned. In the policy, there is a section 4.25 about information to council. And it talks about that there are times when the RFD form is not appropriate to relay information to council, in which case the councillor should use the Annex D memorandum form with their details and signatures. That said, though, it still has to be in a number of days, and I believe it says 7 days in here, similar to what the RFD does, but it's not as intrusive. Perhaps that's not the best word, but it's not as, I'll use intrusive. It's not as intrusive as the RFD. It's more of just like an advice to council or something along those lines. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I understand that. However, that wasn't what we agreed upon in our first term. And I never heard of an Annex D memorandum form before.
Councillor
Anyway,
Zabian.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Through the chair, Deputy Mayor Savage. I read both of those issues, whether you do an RFD or go the other route, but why would somebody write an RFD when they've contacted the chair and they've been refused from the get-go? So why set yourself up for
Councillor
that?
Zabian, you're no longer speaking on the matter at hand.
Why, excuse me?
You're querying a member of council
I went through
based
you.
on a beef that you have with me, and it has nothing to do with this policy.
I'm just stating what she stated. She stated that those are great ideas, but if you're not heard by the chair.
Thank you, Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow.
Solicitor?
So I've been listening to this discussion, and process is something that's come up before. So I just wanted to comment on that. Process can often be a challenge, especially for those who aren't used to having to follow a certain process. And getting into the weeds without looking at the field first may not be helpful. And so to have a group of people reviewing the nuts and bolts of a policy without understanding what it's going to look like when it all comes together may not actually improve things. It may get you all to read it, try to understand how the pieces fit together. But as Your Worship mentioned earlier, there are people who specialize in this. They're usually very busy. Some of them are better than others, like everything else. You don't need one of those people necessarily. But I would encourage you to perhaps speak to discuss holistically about your approach, perhaps before you get into the weeds. And because if you decide how, as a group, you decide how you want to approach meetings, then from there you can ensure that the rules you've adopted do that. The MGA will always govern what you do, first and foremost. Then your rules of order and whatever policies you've adopted to amend those rules of order. And so the town of Kentville has specific policies that amend Robert's rules and speak of how to do those things. But most of the challenges, I would suggest, that the public and I see aren't necessarily with respect to the rules. It's with respect to people's understanding about roles and responsibilities and when things can come forward, either in a meeting or during a meeting, and when they should be talked about later. And that process, I understand, can be frustrating, but it's not going to help you to get into the weeds of this policy or Robert's rules, for that matter, without a broader understanding. And so I just want to throw that out there. It may or may not be part of what the deputy mayor brought forward, but I would encourage you as a group to think about it, not suggesting you make a decision about it today. Just think about how you proceed. And I do think, I think whoever it was, perhaps it was Your Worship, that suggested that this be addressed on its own. You're right to do that. I'm not even sure that half an hour before a CAC meeting is going to suffice. I would suggest to you that this is a special meeting of CAC or council to address just this, because as you can see, for how long it's taking you just to address the motion, which is supposed to be about this long to decide whether you were going to deal with the motion and then deal with many of the issues that have been brought forward, right? you struggle with even that. So this requires, I would suggest to you, a special meeting, and you'll have to figure out how you're going to proceed at that special meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for that, Solicitor. We still have homework to review this, and I'm sure that we can get a list of some of those experts. Some of them may even live in our town, and perhaps we can learn a little bit about that responsibility, accountability, and how we all play within that sandbox before we go further on that. So thank you, Solicitor, and CAO Troke, if perhaps we can get a list of those folks that might assist us. So moving on to our next piece of business is the Regional Sewer 2022-2023 operating and capital budgets. We have a recommendation to CAC from the King's Regional Sewer Committee to approve the operating and capital budgets. Director Bell, did you wish to speak to the report provided?
Sure. Thank you, Your Worship. I'll give just a brief background on the Regional Committee and how it operates. The Regional Sewer Committee exists to provide governance and oversight for the operation of the Kings County Regional Sewer System, which stretches from Colebrook to Greenwich, with a treatment plant situated in New Minas, as we all know. 3 municipal and 1 private partner in this committee review operating and capital budgets annually. The committee consists of elected officials and staff from the County of Kings, Town of Kentville, Village of New Minas, and PepsiCo Frito-Lay, who receive a budget from staff, review it, and then approve it to be forwarded to each partner for their approval. The budgets before you today have been approved by the committee and is before council for your consideration. Annually, the technical subcommittee of the Regional Sewer Committee meets to review the operating and capital budgets and recommend them to the Regional Sewer Committee for review and approval. The proposed budgets were presented to the committee after some changes were suggested and made, and a subsequent meeting was held presenting a more manageable budget with a year-to-year increase of $49,100, or approximately 3.1% overall above last year. The operating and capital budgets were voted on at the last regional sewer meeting and approved unanimously by all 4 parties. The town of Kentville will see a total increase operating plus our capital contribution of $42,400 over last year, or approximately 5.3%. So digging deeper into the numbers, the proposed 22-23 regional sewer operating budget is proposed to be $1,642,600. Of that, just over $1 million goes toward operating, and the remaining $637,800 to capital. The town of Kentville funding requirement would be roughly 51%. We're roughly that much of a user with the formulas that they use based on our flows and strengths of our wastewater. So we would contribute $841,800, roughly 51% of the total operating budget, and that breaks down to $565,100 true operating and another $276,700 to capital works. So there's different ratios there where we're paying about 56% of the operating and only about 43% of the capital contributions for the 22-23 fiscal year. The other partners make up the remaining roughly half, slightly less than half operating and slightly more than half on the capital side. So the proposed capital budget is pretty aggressive this year. They've got a lot of work to do to both the plant itself. Last year was sort of phase 2 of a 3-year program to upgrade the aeration and desludging. last year it was quite successful with what they did, desludging, and hopefully that will continue to improve operations and odor issues. So they plan to spend 2.56 million this fiscal year, which includes proposed upgrades to a section of the aging force main that's had several breaks in around sensitive area of Miners Marsh, which starts at the big station and behind the Justice Center, RG5, and then goes all the way to the Gloos Cap Curling Club station. So they'll spend roughly $860,000 on that upgrade of that force line to make it more reliable and less prone to breaks. And the second phase, as I mentioned, of the aeration and desludging is estimated to be $1.7 million. And with that, there's been some, you've received the attachments to the breakdown of the budget. And before we get to the recommendations, I wonder if there's any questions.
Before we go on to any questions on the technical side, Deputy Mayor Savage, you are our member on this committee. Did you wish to speak to the budget as presented, or did you have any information that you wanted to pass on to council?
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Director Bell. We've gone through a couple of meetings with respect to the operating budget and the capital budget. And with respect to the operating capital, we started, the town council anyway, started at around an 8% increase year over year. And we were successful in getting it down to the 5.3 as outlined by Director Bell. I think one of the things that's really important on a go forward basis, and I think collectively we've all agreed that as we move forward, we'll take a really good fulsome look at the formula that we used, because the formula that is currently used now and has been used for probably decades, Director Bell, I think. And in that formula, the BODs and the flow is really what comprises that formula, and the TSS, which is total suspended solids, which you can all probably realize what those are. Those actually don't go into this formula that's used. So I think we all agree that having the TSS incorporated into that formula may make it a little bit more palatable for us on a go forward. So I just wanted to make mention of that, that's something that we will look at as a committee on a go forward basis. And
right.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any technical questions for Director Bell before we move on to the recommendations? Director Bell, I do have one with regards to on page 1, the under the budget implications, the 2022-23, the first line, regional sewer operating budget at $1,642,600, and that's broken down into operating and capital. Why do they put capital in an operating budget and then also do a capital budget? Like, isn't capital capital?
Capital is capital, but this is partly how they fund their capital projects. So certainly, much like we do, they come from debentures, but how those are paid, the principal this year on the debenture will be 280,000, and 321 will be transferred to depreciation reserve. So that 640,000 almost comes from the partners, and that's how the capital projects are funded. They're going to spend, as I mentioned, 2.6 roughly million this year on 2 fairly large projects, and that will continue to deplete their capital reserves. But their expectation is to fund that through the partners at about 600 and again 637 this year, 660 next year, 689 the following year. So that's until they can pay off some of these larger capital projects over multi-year. So that's really where, I guess, essentially where the funding comes from, short of short of grants, which they haven't received any for any of these large capital projects.
Right. So are any of these projects making that lagoon better, or are they just?
Oh, there's no
Keeping it
question they
as
are. I
status
mean,
quo.
the plant was built in the late 70s, and it saw upgrades in the early 90s. They did some work to the headworks, put in some drum screens that took out a lot of the the organics that were getting in, that would otherwise be hard to treat, so they could be taken out in a drier fashion before they entered the lagoon. And then they did aeration upgrades again back in, I think, 93. But been a lot of years since that kind of money was spent, and another 25 years has passed for that plant, and it's due. Unfortunately, they all seem to come due at the same time. The force main they've replaced now in 3 or 4 phases sort of started at the plant and worked their way towards Kentville from New Minas, and have done 2 phases, and they still have the 2 more to go. But this year they expect, like I said, to do the one from behind the Justice Center, roughly to Blues Cap Curling Club. But those are all required upgrades to keep that plant functioning, and to sustain the growth that the valley is seeing, both with residential, commercial, and industrial users, for sure.
Right. So having said that, is it worth spending this money on this old plant, or should we be looking at new technology? I mean, those biodigesters that are out there, and FCM is throwing money at communities to put them in, and they do generate power. So I mean, I'm all for generating power from poop if that's what it takes. I just wonder if what is the life expectancy of this plant, or is it going to take us $2.5 million a year to keep it going, for the foreseeable future? And I realize that, we're looking at growth, and we've talked about that in Kentville. So is this the right way to go, or should we be looking at something else? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, for sure. There's lots of new technologies, and from biodigesters, to making energy from the gases. It isn't feasible, of course, in a lagoon system. That's a multi-acre open air pond, which of course we all know what happens. But some of the pluses from these kind of ponds are they can take the huge swings in flow that we see being along the Cornwallis River. There's lots of infiltration, even though we've tried to separate storm sewers and flood river water from getting into the system. If that was a mechanical plant, I suspect a mechanical plant would get washed out at least a dozen times a year, unless it was so over designed that it would cost so many dozens of millions of dollars to build a plant that could handle the normal flows, yet withstand those flood flows that happens just from high tides and storm events and other cross connections that get into the sewer, not just from Kentville, but New Minas, Greenwich, and all throughout the parts of Kings County that go to that plant. Lagoons are simple, but they are effective. I mean, the quality of the effluent when everything is working correctly, and we've had a couple summers of odor issues, but that plant I think can continue to work well with these upgrades. They only expect to spend this year the 2.6, we'll say, and then next year to finish off the force main the rest of the way, another $1 million. And there's nothing in the longer sort of the longer term 5-year plan beyond next year. I mean, there will always be some things to do, whether it's to the headworks or the drum screen, but that should really upgrade that plant and the force line that they're doing this year for a good many decades to come, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Gerard, you have something?
Thank you, Your Worship. Dave, just a question. Is the sewer all metered? Is that where we get the percentage that everybody pays, or is it like Valley Waste where it's a percentage of residents and stuff like that?
It's a flow plus a strength calculation. So, you know, Kentville probably contributes. I don't have that right in front of me, but I did do a spreadsheet because we were trying to compare their numbers and see how they were coming up with our share. But our flows are over half, and our strength, sorry, our flows are under half. They're probably 40 some percent, I guess, of the overall, but our strengths are a little higher than say even New Minas per capita or per gallon. New Minas actually, even with the commercial district that they have of a lot of fast foods, their strengths aren't that much higher than residential strength. Ours tend to be higher. Some of that, I believe, is, you know, some of the industry that we have both in the business park and the hospital themselves are a big user. They're not in town, but they receive their water and sewer bill directly from us, even though they sit outside the town limits. But those big users drive up our strengths and our flows to the point where that's how they come up with the overall cost share, rather than just it's not a population or a percentage that way, Councillor Gerard. It is based on logic, but it's we were just trying to get our heads around how it came up to be. We felt originally we were taking the lion's share of the increase. So as Deputy Mayor mentioned, we're going to review that formula to see how it all breaks down for the next budget next year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Director, if you want to go with the recommendations.
Sure. The first one is for the operational budget. It's a motion to recommend to CAC that the approval of the Kings County Sewer 2022-23 operating budget as presented at $1,642,600, of which $841,800 is assigned to the town of Kentville and billed in quarterly installments.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. We will have two motions on this. So our first motion is that CAC recommend to the February 28th, 2022 council meeting for approval of the Kings Regional Sewer 2022-2023 operating budget as presented at $1,642,600, of which $841,800 is assigned to the town of Kentville and billed in quarterly installments. If someone could move that, please. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor York for the second. It has been moved and seconded that CAC recommend to the February 28, 2022 council meeting for approval of the Kings Regional Sewer 2022-2023 operating budget as presented at $1,642,600, of which $841,800 is assigned to the town of Kentville and billed in quarterly installments. Are there any discussion on this matter? Councillor Gerard, did you have something else? No, okay. Are you ready for the question? The question is on CAC recommending to the February 28, 2022 council meeting for approval of the Kings Regional Sewer 2022-2023 operating budget as presented at $1,642,600, of which $841,800 is assigned to the town of Kentville and billed in quarterly installments. Deputy Mayor, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Gerard?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you. Director, for the next recommendation.
The second recommendation is for their capital budget, and CAC recommends to council, our motion recommend to council the approval of the Kings County or Kings Regional Sewer 2022-23 capital budget be approved as presented at $2,557,500.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Director. And our motion number 2 is that CAC recommend to the February 28th, 2022 council meeting for approval of the Kings Regional Sewer 2022-2023 capital budget as presented at $2,557,500. If someone could move that, please. Councillor Gerard, thank you. And a seconder. Deputy Mayor, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that CAC recommend to the February 28th, 2022 council meeting for approval of the Kings Regional Sewer 2022-2023 capital budget as presented at $2,557,500. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is on the CAC recommend to February 28th, 2022 council meeting for approval of the Kings Regional Sewer 2022-2023 capital budget as presented at $2,557,500. Deputy Mayor, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Gerard?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you very much, Director. All right, the next item we have on our agenda is with regards to the climate change projections, and Director CEO Troke, if you wanted to provide more information to council on this matter.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Snow. So what we have here is we had a document that was put forward with regards to Kings County from Climate Atlantic. And I just wanted to bring this forward to council because typically most of the conversations around climate change are focused from a mitigation perspective, but this report is more focused on the adaptation side of things. And so as the conversations, of course, are moving forward with the idea of a regional approach to climate change, this is not necessarily a different perspective, but collects data and provides information, specifically in the fact that, you know, as it's getting warmer and precipitation patterns are changing and so on, that, you know, adaptation will be one side of the conversation versus kind of the mitigation, making your buildings more efficient and whatnot. So we wanted to make sure that the report came forward to council. This is for information purposes tonight, but it's a good read through if you want to take a look at some of the data and information that's coming out on the adaptation side.
Thank you, CEO. Deputy Mayor, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I don't wish to add anything. I'm wondering if we could take a few moments once we're done with this topic.
Oh, okay, certainly. So if there's no question for the CAO, it's 8:17, and we'll take a 5-minute biological break. All right, we're all back. The next item on our agenda is the Mentoring Plus quarterly report. And CAO Troke, did you wish to add anything to the information provided?
Sure, thank you, Mayor Snow. So typically what would happen is Mentoring Plus would provide information, and I would include that within the CAO's report. So to start off 2022, Mentoring Plus is going to be doing a quarterly report. It's a deeper dive into a lot of the work that they're doing and would be more comprehensive. So we thought that this format would be one that could come to council on a quarterly basis. And then of course we would have Mentoring Plus likely throughout the year come and do some specific in-person updates. So we just wanted to get this to council, a little deeper dive than the normal updates you would get, and this will be coming to you on a quarterly basis.
Excellent. Thank you very much, CAO. Did anyone have any questions or comments they wanted to make with regards to Mentoring Plus? All right, moving on to our next item is Property Assessed Community Energy PACE Program. CAO, if you could speak to us on this matter.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. So this is one of those items that there was some briefing material supplied to council back in 2019, and then subsequently there was some follow-up by Bruce Cameron to myself with regards to the PACE program. And I also know that during some of the priorities of council, this had come up from a number of members. So I thought I would just do a quick update based on that conversation that I had with them, and that the fact that they are actually getting ready right now to do another submission, or you could call it an application, to FCM or through the Municipal Green Fund. And so currently Stratford, PEI, Wolfville, and Charlottetown are in the current offering. And I know the Wolfville has maxed out there, I believe it was $900,000 worth of investment. So I think at a much more rapid pace than they had anticipated. So the uptake was very, very high. What I was going to recommend to council was first we should, I think, invite PACE to come and do a presentation to council as to the updates, probably at the next CAC, if possible, just because the timing of this would be that PACE is currently receiving essentially requests from the municipal units looking to put an application in under the Green Municipal Funding, with the idea that they would have a package all together and moving forward within the next couple of months. And so the other piece is that originally some of the administrative side of it fell more heavily to the municipal units, but I believe now based on the staffing and composition that PACE Atlantic has put together, that they've taken on much more the administrative burden in delivering the program and working with a standard list of service providers. So really what I was hoping to do is just provide this quick update to council. And then if there was interest in inviting PACE in to do a presentation, it would allow council to consider if there was interest in moving forward to the application stage or not as the town of Kentville. If not, obviously status quo and considering looking at future options. The other piece is that the $300 million that was available under the Green Municipal Fund, there's $200 million left to go out to these types of opportunities. And the anticipation is that in the next 12 to 18 months, that's going to be committed. So it is one of those pieces where I think there's been several touch points where Kentville looked at this. And I think in this case here, this is kind of near the end of where the fund is. And if the town is interested in pursuing it, it would probably be good to get an update and have a discussion if this was the right time to consider engaging on it or not.
All right, thank you, CAO. So based on that recommendation, I'd like to put this motion forward to council for consideration, that CAC direct the CAO to set up a presentation by PACE to provide council with decision-making information. If someone could move that, please. Councillor Gerard, thank you. And Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that CAC direct the CAO to set up a presentation by PACE to provide council with decision-making information. Is there any discussion on this matter? So just Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. May I address CEO Troke?
Certainly.
Through the chair. CEO Troke, so with this Green Municipal Fund and the fact that there's this 200 million left, how much of that can we actually secure to use for PACE within our town to offer to the citizens?
Sure. So good question. And so the answer would be it kind of depends on the number of applications they would get. Atlantic Canada actually has been very successful based on our population. I believe in the first offering, there was around 30% actually went to Atlantic Canada. So there was a huge uptake and fairly aggressive. I also know that some municipal units have looked at, and so at one point Berwick was involved in PACE and then made the decision to kind of turn that over, I believe, to the credit union. But some municipal units looked at actually funding it through vehicles internally they had and loaning monies out. So it kind of creates an opportunity between if you go forward and this Green Municipal Fund is there and it's sufficient to do what you want to do, then there's no borrowing pressure, kind of, if you will, on the municipality. But some municipalities then looked at it and said, okay, if there's a reserve that they want to loan out at a certain rate, or even if there was other investments that they had within the town, that sometimes that's been, made for consideration. So I think at this point, I think it'd be PACE would inform us kind of the changes they made as an organization and give some sense of what they saw the offering that they were going to be pursuing in this go round, and maybe give some kind of parameters on what they've done with the other municipal units to at least give an idea of what they would see as a reasonable scope in starting something like this off.
Great, thank you very much.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. CAO Troke, maybe you can answer this question, but how would it be cheaper for a resident in Kentville to go through, let's say we get the PACE program, our PACE program, to put in their heat pumps than to go through Nova Scotia Power's programs?
So it would all be how it would be structured. So, if you were talking about like a 2 to 4% interest rate, probably cheaper through this program. But I don't know all the details specifically of Nova Scotia Power's program, but I'm sure the folks from the administrative side of PACE would be able to answer those kinds of questions in a presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Zabian.
Yeah, CEO Troke, thanks. I followed this, I think in 2020. I think this came to council with the previous council, and I'm just wondering, because it almost kind of sets us up as a bank, so to speak, for citizens. Would that impact staffing here? Who would handle that aspect of it?
So I think you're right. I think in the past it was more heavily reliant on the municipalities doing a lot of the legwork. I think in this case, and at least my preliminary view from this conversation with PACE, is that a lot of the paperwork and the lending happens from PACE, and then essentially the collection then happens through the municipality. So I think they've broken down the workload, and I think it's more on the recapture side now that the municipalities are involved, where before they were more involved in kind of all those administrative aspects. So I think it's changed, but I would say probably be a great opportunity to see what PACE would say, and also probably what the size of the program, what they might recommend. So if it's something that you needed another body for to administer, for example, or whatever, those kinds of things, you would look at it.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Just a note around Councillor Maxwell's question with regards to the interest rate. Yeah, Nova Scotia Power's interest rate is 8.5%. So it's quite a bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. And as a follow-up to the information that CAO Troke provided you with, I attended a briefing with regards to PACE Atlantic. Our Member of Parliament, Cody Blois, had invited all of the municipal mayors and wardens in his riding to hear this. And a couple of things popped up from that. One is the fact that that Wolfville's program has been highly successful, and their actual success rate and the amount of money that they have put through that is actually greater than the City of Toronto's PACE program. So it's quite incredible. And I had the opportunity to have lunch with Mayor Donovan last week and talk about this. And if you want to see what Wolfville is doing, they have a wonderful page on their Town of Wolfville website with regards to PACE. And as you know, Wolfville has a lot of residents that are very close to the Dykelands, and their PACE program is very much pointed towards getting people off of oil that are in that location, much like the city of Charlottetown. Their big problem is lead pipes. So, PACE can be used for a lot of things and can also be directed. So again, it's one of those opportunities, and the Green Municipal Fund has money available, and Wolfville probably it will be having more money in the bank from the Green Municipal Fund very shortly from that perspective. Councillor Zabian.
It would be nice to know what Wolfville's take is on it. I don't know how long they've been signed up with PACE, but when I look at that program, I just worry that we're going to spend a lot of money, not recoup some of it, and we're going to pay interest on that loan too, where we could have used that money, for our infrastructure, our roads and stuff. So it'd be nice to get some feedback from a municipality who's gone through the grunt of it and what the ups and downs are on it. And I mean, it looks good on paper, but there's so many efficiency programs there. Anybody can go get a heat pump from Efficiency Nova Scotia, and I think our money maybe could be spent better. So it'd be nice to get a little report from another unit like Wolfville. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. If we access the money through GMF,
Green,
right, then we're using their pool of funds, are we not? Hence, we wouldn't be paying any interest or any of those carrying costs.
No.
Thank you.
All right, so this is there any further discussion? We do have a motion on the table. Are you ready for the question? The question is for CAC to direct the CAO to set up a presentation by PACE to provide council with decision-making information. Deputy Mayor, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Gerard?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
No.
And I say yes, and the motion is carried. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the taxi bylaw requesting first reading. So as you've seen from the memo to council, there was a couple of typographical errors that were not picked up. You'll remember that we reviewed this in review mode, where the lines are crossed out and that sort of thing. So you're not really looking at the full document. So there's a recommendation to CAC to approve changes to the taxi bylaw to fix the typographical errors and recommend first reading to council. So the motion would be that Council Advisory Committee recommend to the February 28th council meeting to give first reading to the amended taxi bylaw. If someone could move that, please. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor York, thank you. So it has been moved and seconded that Council Advisory Committee recommend to the February 28th council meeting to give first reading to the amended taxi bylaw. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is on Council Advisory Committee recommending to the February 28th council meeting to give first reading to the amended taxi bylaw. Deputy Mayor, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Gerard?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Counselor Maxwell,
Yes.
Counselor York,
Yes.
Counselor Zabian.
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to the next item of business is with regards to street naming. And Director Gentleman, you've hung out with us tonight so that I will ask you to please make this presentation to us.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council, and happy Thanksgiving. So yes, this is a request for approval for a new street name. And in accordance with policy statement G27, excuse me, the recognition of community contributions, council will receive and consider submissions for new streets from developers. So Travis Mills and Ian Snott of Homeward Bound's property purchased an area of land of 7 acres off of Me Road. They are building 48 townhouses on that property at this time, and the developers would like to name the street, as shown on the attached map, as Hybos Court. Now, included in the package is an email with their justification and rationale for the name, as well as their logo that they hope to use for their development. So I would recommend that CAC recommend to council that the name Homos Court be approved for the new street name for this new development.
Thank you very much, Director Gentleman. Before we move into to the motion, I'd like to put something on the table. So there is the use of the possessive in this, and we know that on street signs, and if you think of Miners Marsh, we always lose the possessive because the apostrophe doesn't show up on street signs, and it doesn't go towards signage. So my concern is that Ibu is a French word for owl, and if the apostrophe is not there, it means that Ibu would have an S at the end, which is grammatically incorrect, because Ibu should have an X for the plural. So my concern is that if we can't meet the criteria, and this, I love the name, I love everything they wrote about it. My concern is the grammar of signage, where we don't do possessive on signage. Go ahead, Bev.
Okay,
please.
so if the developers are okay with that rationale to drop the S and maybe add the X, if that is the correct grammar for it, then would this be approved by council to move ahead?
Okay, so I will put the motion to the floor with regards to the proposed street name. That CAC recommend approval of the proposed street name to town council at the February 28th council meeting. If someone could move that, please. Councillor York, thank you. And Councillor Maxwell for the second. Thank you. So it has been moved and seconded that CAC recommend approval to the proposed street name to town council at the February 28th council meeting. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, so I think the term Ibu, owl in French, is satisfactory to council, and however, it will be up to them to decide whether they want it plural, which will mean an X, and that's just dropping the possessive because it doesn't show on our signage, and it would just, not that it's confusing, but we always get people telling us that Miners Marsh should have an apostrophe, and the signs, right?
Oh no, I've never heard that. Okay, so we're a go as long as they're okay with dropping the apostrophe, and it'll go to council at the end of the month for approval.
Okay.
Very good.
All right, so the question is on CAC recommending approval of the proposed street name to town council at the February 28th council meeting. Deputy Mayor, how say you?
Sorry, just a question. So it would be spelled H-I-B-O-U-X?
If they want the plural, or
If they
they would
want the
just
plural.
drop the apostrophe. S.
Okay, yes.
So it'll be one of the two. It'll be
One of the two.
H-I-B-O-U
Okay.
or H-I-B-O-U-X.
Okay, thank you. Yes, is my answer. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Gerard.
Yes.
Counselor Huntley.
Yes.
Counselor Maxwell.
Yes.
Counselor York.
Yes.
Counselor Zabian.
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you. All right, council has an HR matter which must be conducted in a closed session. We require a motion to go into a closed session to discuss the agenda items. We will not be returning to Facebook Live for adjournment of this meeting. If I could have a motion to move into the closed session to discuss the item. Councillor Huntley, thank you. And a seconder. Councillor York, thank you.
Is there any correspondence, Mayor Snow?
Correspondence has already been done.
Or no, because we don't have public. Don't people send in letters, or do we not do that anymore?
Correspondence was number 7.
No, from
Item
the
7.
public, no. Number 9.
No, I have no correspondence for that. Correspondence is number 7.
Wouldn't Jennifer get the correspondence though? Because there's no public, we're not in chamber. You know how we ask for. Does nobody know the answer to that question? You know, when we're on Zoom, the public can't attend, obviously. Don't we ask for correspondence if the recording secretary has anything to present to council?
Solicitor?
He's referring to public comment, Your Worship.
Okay, we
Which is
have
on- Right.
CAO. Do we have any coming from?
I do not have anything coming. If there is anything that does come in, certainly we will make sure that that goes to all council.
All right, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council move into a closed session. The question is on adoption of the motion to move into a closed session. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried and the time is 8:44.